by Comixology. Getting a little confusing here, but still, I think the point is that there are a number of different companies jumping into the foray here. This is Comics Plus through Iverse Media. They also offer digital comics to customers. You'll see some Archie titles in there. All right. So, we have talked about the past. We talked about the present. What about the future, Michael? How will future generations want to get comics and graphic novels and collections from their libraries? You know, we're going to walk on a ladder here and make a couple of predictions. May or may not come true. This is based upon what we're seeing right now and what we're doing. And since no one knows for sure exactly what will happen, perhaps it's best to talk about some possible futures for the graphic novel, the comic book itself, and how libraries will supply both to their customers. So this is a hot potato that's been tossed around for how many years now? You know, the death of the physical comic book has been predicted for many, many years. And yet, comic books and comic book stores as specialty retailing still exist to this day. Interesting, huh? Oopsie. So this kind of begs the question, will digital comics replace comic books? You know, how can digital collections of comic book storylines exist if comic books don't exist? It's kind of like chicken and an egg type thing, right? I mean, you have what was published in the past, but there's still publishing going on right now. Is the digital graphic novel of the future, based upon comic book storylines that exist in individual comic books? Digital comics accessible on mobile devices are becoming absolutely increasingly popular. Day and date is occurring, we know that. But will digital replace print? All of these questions have implications for comic fans who frequent libraries. Or will it be kind of like a happy marriage with perhaps some bumps along the way, and the two still coexist? Maybe. Comixology, for example, has offered comics retailers the opportunity to feature digital comics on their websites. They're still there. And therefore offers a profitable digital comics portal to their existing customers. That's supporting both ends of the deal. But nothing, this is for sure that, people really enjoy being able to carry around, a lot of comics on their portable device, and just something feels good about having that available to you at all times. They're fun to read, and it's nice to have them there. It's nice to get new stuff, too, as it's being published. We contend that digital comics as a portable online entertainment resource are here to stay. Tablets are becoming increasingly popular and are forecast to be one of the main ways future generations will access digital comics. And comics, as we know, are already right at home on the iPad. We've talked about the connection between comics retailers and libraries in the past, how one can benefit another. So if an individual gets turned on to comics in a library, but wants to delve perhaps farther in, and the library doesn't have the funding necessary to be able to expand their collection, the next stop is the comic shop. But what about the comics fan who goes to the comic shop and then really kind of like doesn't want to necessarily buy stuff, but wants to be able to see what the local library has that works in reverse also? Michael.
So I'm going to talk about the possibility of a new model for digital distribution of comics through the library. And that question mark is not there in the comics in the library, what kind of way, but in the, do we need a new model? The question, do we need a new model? I mean, libraries have been in the digital distribution game for quite a while now. There's many different ways that we get that information out there, but there are three big ones. So you have your first one, your open public access. You put it up on the website, and it's effectively in the public domain. People will find it. You can ask them to cite it. Will they cite it? Who knows? Who uses it? Anybody with an internet connection. What are the digital rights management issues surrounding that? What does that look like? Nothing. Very, very, very little control over what's done with that information, how it's accessed and how it's used and reused and recycled and distributed to others. So that's your first model. The second one, you have your database subscription plans. And this is another one that libraries have picked up some time ago. This is generally how we handle our newspapers, our journals, our magazines, our encyclopedias, our online encyclopedias. This is generally behind a password wall. So our digital rights management issues, right around here in the middle. People access information, more information is available to them about how they can use these articles, these issues, this information. So it's a little harder for that information to find its way out to the entire web. The third way is the ebook model that we're approaching right now. And this largely in libraries is the overdrive model. Does anybody read the New York Times article about putting books on the Kindle? A couple people in here. That's the one. Problems that you run into with that one, will it work with every digital format? Can you bring it up on a computer and bring it up on a Kindle and bring it up on an iPad? Right now, for those three, the answer is yes. But what's coming next? Will it be available to people with different media? What's the digital rights management like for that one? It's like, it's like way out there. You have files that expire in 2 weeks. You have files that are only accessible to a certain number of concurrent users. And one of the big issues we're looking into right now, or the publishers are looking into right now, are files that are only usable a certain number of times before they expire. So the question is, should we be looking to a totally new model with these in existence? And should we be looking at a new model? Is there one size fits all for comics and graphic novels? Let's say you have the new compendium of The Walking Dead. Does that need to be behind a heavy subscription barrier? Maybe it does. But what about back issues to comics that are no longer regularly accessed? Well, if they're not in the public domain, there has to be some kind of restriction there. The way that we handle, say, the New York Times right now, in most libraries, is that the newest issues may be available through a larger library system, and the back issues may be available to an entire state. So, we don't want to tie ourselves to a single model for all distribution of sequential art, comics, and graphic novels, but we want to keep all the doors open right now. I think we've seen a common trajectory for libraries and comics to move into the digital world, and it's only crossed a few times, and right now is the time for it to come together.
So I think we can agree that the future of the connection between digital comics and libraries, or comics in general and libraries, is largely unwritten. But the rise of digital comics as consumer choice certainly does point us toward a future where customers are getting used to this as a given. One thing that we do know for sure, the youngest generation of comic users are natively digital and will prefer digital to print as they grow older. This is a real important point because, you know, as these kids grow up to tax-paying adults, they have grown digital. They read preferably in a digital fashion. Libraries must serve them in the way that they are used to and provide the services that they demand. Libraries are already ramping up to deliver new programs and services to these digital natives, and you know, it's only a number of years until they become 18 and taxpayers. So serving the digital generation is, we contend, you know, in our research for this, probably one of the most important hurdles that libraries and the comics industry will have to contend with as they move into the future. Both the comics industry, library profession, and the book-selling industry are all headed, we contend, toward different versions of the same inevitable crisis. The book-selling industry is already seeing the fallout of growing e-reading preferences. We've already seen the death of a major bookseller. The library profession is trying to adapt, but some factions are not trying hard enough to make inroads to serving digital natives. The comics industry is headed in the right direction with the variety of digital services that exist now, but an inevitable confrontation will take place, at least we contend. Eventually, that will mean the life or death of the printed comic book. Will this be the final collapse of the print comics industry? Simply put, we're predicting that print comics as we know them cannot profitably exist in a generation that does not prefer them. And this makes digital comics that much more important because that medium will keep this Native American literary form alive for future generations. Thank you. We purposefully left a bunch of time at the end here between now and 1 o'clock so that we could entertain your questions and comments. We'd like to ask you, if you have questions, please come to the mic in the center here, which we believe is live, so that everyone can hear your question. And we'll do our best to answer them.
Actually, I don't think I really need a mic. Where is this going to be posted? And is it going to be posted so we can get what you've presented?
Thank you for asking that question. What he asked is our PowerPoint going to be posted in a particular area where everyone will have access? I don't believe that exists through New York Comic Con, but we will do our best to do that. Michael, what do you think?
Probably SlideShare or something of the sort. Get it out there to the public.
We're going to put it up in some way. I'll tell you what. On Twitter, I'm Dave Lisa, all one word. And if you want to, follow me, I'll definitely be announcing that when we do it.
I'm Mazikien. Get your pens out. Mazikien.
Yes.
I know you guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I know you guys are talking a lot about the iPad and the digital readers. Do you foresee, I know there's a lot of apps right now where if you subscribe to, let's say, a cable company, there's apps for like ESPN and HBO. You can log into your specific company's name, username, password, things like that. Do you foresee a future where maybe Comixology will get involved with the libraries and you can choose your library name and password, things like that, or library ID number, and maybe that's a way to try to bring them together?
Very good question. Could everyone hear his question? Okay. Yeah, when we were originally starting to think about this presentation and brewing it to pitch to New York Comic Con, honestly, to tell you the truth, that's kind of like what we were thinking. We thought that Comixology is doing such an awesome job, distributing digital comics, and it's so easy to grab them, and they're enjoyable to read. Wow, this could work well for libraries. Holy mackerel! I don't think that there has been a connection there yet in terms of a question being put to the company. So hopefully, that might happen in the future. So.
And that also does raise the questions that David raised before about the comics that are not being produced from a centralized distribution point, and reaching out to them as well with similar models.
Hello.
You have brought up the topic of whether or not the printed book was going to fade away or coexist with digital. My question is, what about like that group out there that values the printed book, the mint condition, the signature on it, putting it in the case, saving it? Like, should we even just stop buying the book? Like, it's not going to be worth anything? Or,
I want all 200 of you in this audience to know that I didn't want to say those words at the end. Yeah, because I've been a comic book fan all my life, and nothing's going to replace printed comics for me. It's really tough to say. I'd say no. I mean, if you're a comics fan right now, buy more. God, it's what I'm saying. It's all in the way that you want to approach it.
But I mean, they'll still print them, right?
That would be nice, but the word, the integral word that we tried to insert there was profitable. And if, you know, if comic book publishing has strained profitability right now, what's it going to be like when, you know, the majority of the customers that you're serving are digital natives? Yikes. I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Hi, I was just wondering if you know, like, the standards for scanning, like, and digitally archiving valuable comics that are really delicate, and what they're scanned on?
Very good question. I haven't seen this. You know, personally, I haven't done any scanning, but of the scanning that I know, you usually have to destroy an issue to be able to scan it properly. I mean, that's not always the case, but in a lot of cases it is. Michael, do you know anything more about this?
I do not, but I think that, you know, that technology has improved in recent years, that it's not necessarily the technology they're using is destroying the issues at hand.
And also, it's interesting, I think, to note that when you see like Silver Age and Golden Age comics that are being republished and made available by DC and Marvel, you know, through avenues like Comixology, the scans are often very good. Sometimes they're bad, but you really, you know what I'm saying? You don't see the actual yellowing of a page. You know, it's more like they are kind of like almost recreated. The artwork not recreated, but differently colored, and made more digital. I'm not making myself. Thank you very much. Hello.
As a printed comic user, buyer, whatever you want to call it, buys printed comics and just moving into digital comics now. I don't know too well if there's a way you can actually just subscribe to, like, let's say DC has a new 52 coming out, and you can just subscribe to it digitally where you just get it when it comes out immediately. And if there's ever going to be a format where you can get that printed, mailed to your house, kind of like a newspaper or something like that. Whereas everyone likes to go out to the comic book store to buy it, but sometimes it's inconvenient. And if there's a more convenient way for comic book users just to get it, rather than sitting in front of a laptop, like if you're going to work, you can just pull it out and read it on a bus or a plane or something like that.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I hear you. I really do. One example I'd like to bring up, which is very recent. So with the New 52, I know when I went to my comic shop that week, you know, I bought the first week that Justice League #1 came out. I bought the combination print and digital bagged one. You know, so I kind of had the best of both worlds. Will that continue? We'll see. You know, but at least we know that you know, both print and digital are being supported now by DC.
And I think that the print and ship format that you, am I right, that you were talking about there, that's going to come down, like most other things, to profitability of whether there's the demand for it.
It just seems like there would be more, I think, more convenience if you can just get it shipped to you or emailed to you, or just like when you update your, like, you turn your Apple device, it just refreshes and it's like, okay, well, here's this week's issue, this month's issue, you know?
Very interesting. Hey, maybe there are some DC and Marvel people in the audience, and we'll take your suggestion to heart.
So, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
DC Comics
Hello.
used to do it.
Hi, I have more of a
DC Comics
comment.
used to have
I'm a creator of a digital
mail
comic
me
called
my
PowerPlay
comic
that
books.
came out yesterday.
You have to
from
subscribe.
Yeah.
It's a comic
It's
that
expensive.
Riley Brown, who I work with, he specifically made it for the digital format to incorporate the swipes and the fades and things like that. But we were still able to put together a print version, which we are going to be pitching this weekend. So I think just there's a new model like slave labor foregoing individual issues. I think opening up digital, getting a new audience, that will, you know, print's never going to go away. I mean, people are always going to want something in print, but, you know, a trade makes more sense than single issues. And if you're maximizing the potential of the digital format, you know, you're just going to draw in more people.
So what you're saying is that the idea of, you know, print going completely dead is not, but maybe the immediate, the monthly issues.
The floppies, yeah.
Right. That's more at risk today.
Yeah, I mean, I would always want to buy a trade of something I like, but I find I'm more willing to give it a try, something for 99 cents to $1.99 on Comixology. I mean, especially if you're maximizing the experience, if you're, giving something extra in the digital format, I think supporting that makes sense because, we're at a comic book convention in New York. I mean, it's not going to go away. This is still going to be here, but we just need to build the audience.
Good point. And, a number of the libraries take part in the free comic book day. But the idea is that, people come there and they become aware of, a title or a whole subject, a whole area of comics that they haven't been aware of before, and that will bring them either to the comic book stores or to the digital format. But at that point, the choice is theirs. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My concern right now, as a librarian, is getting not only how can I convince my library to fund digital comics for my kids, but how can I even do that? Because I keep hearing you guys saying that this could work with libraries, but what I wanted to hear today was how does it work with libraries? Because I want to get digital comics to my kids now. Is there any sort of, who can I subscribe to in order to allow access to digital comics? I have a lot of, just let me, who can I subscribe to where, is there a cloud that when I buy something, like a comic for the kids, that all they have access to is the cloud? Or some sort of in-house, iPad that I can have so that they aren't, buying the comics like we have a subscription to Comixology, but then the kids have access to it too, and they're buying a million comics and it goes over budget or something. Is there anything right now that I can have the kids access and be able to read?
The only one that I know of that's available right now, and
With controls.
It's not, yes, with controls. It's not the monthly issues, but Overdrive within their collection does have access to some compendiums and graphic novels. It's not a lot, and your library or library system has to choose them as part of the set of materials that they access. So if you're really in a pilot phase right now and you're looking to see if this is something that would work, that might be something that you would want to speak to whoever administers that, whether it's your library or a cooperative that you belong to that selects the materials. That would be a direction to go right now, to pitch putting a couple of currently available titles in there. That the only library I could find that's doing that right now, where you can punch in your library card number and download a graphic novel to an e-reader or tablet, is Los Angeles. And you can find them in their catalog. But if there are any other librarians in the room who are doing that now, I see a hand up.
We're at the New York Public Library.
At the New York Public Library.
We have Marvel Overdrive materials. They have single-issue comic books. We have a few X-Men First Class and Spider-Man Marvel Adventures.
Okay.
And they circulate really well. So.
There you go.
The thing that we're envisioning is something full-blown. You know what I'm saying? Like EBSCO host for comics.
Right.
And that's what we're envisioning.
Well, if Marvel made more available, we would buy more.
Yeah.
So.
Pulling this back to Comixology, I wanted to mention that last spring I was working on an article for Library Journal about digital comics in libraries, and I got in touch with somebody from Comixology. He seemed a little unaware of the issues involved in what I was asking about. The editor at Library Journal joined in on the conversation, so there were the two of us trying to talk to him and ask him what we could do or what they were doing. Because first he said, well, if you have computers in libraries, people can go in and buy comics through Comixology. So we told him, well, no, libraries offer books and comics free to use, next to borrow them. And finally he said, well, can libraries buy comics on Comixology just like anybody else, and then the users can use them? Well, we never got past that point, but it was clear to myself and Heather that he seemed unaware of the digital rights management issues here, because the releases certainly wouldn't have allowed for multiple either successive or simultaneous use with one password or whatever for an individual purchase like that. But they have been made aware of it, or at least someone has, and the more of us that talk to them whenever we can access or deal with any of their reps, the more they're going to realize that they need to do something.
I've heard similar stories before, and what I see here today is strength in numbers on this issue. Who's a librarian here today? Okay, and who's in publishing here today? So we have mostly librarians I'm seeing right now. Who's in neither of those? So pretty heavily librarian-tilted crowd here. But at the same time, I think all of us are in the same boat here. We're all in a position right now to reach out, either locally or to these companies and say, hey, how and when can we make this happen? And I think the fact that we see all of these people here today with a concern, that should turn a few heads in the Comixology offices.
Thank you. Folks, we have about 5 more minutes, so let's quickly work through the remaining questions.
There's one gentleman up here who has
Hi, I'm a librarian in an urban library in New Jersey, and my teams love comics, and they're theoretically part of this digital native age, but the economic reality for them is that they don't have computers at home, much less internet, much less iPads. I know that the publishing industry is looking for a profit, but as librarians, I'm fearful that we're creating kind of a digital divide in this comics world, and is there anything we can do to advocate for that segment of the population that realistically is never, ever going to have an iPad in their hands?
Wow, good question. Michael?
That's a very good question. And on the one side, we would, I personally as a librarian would love to see libraries provide that kind of digital access and that hardware and software to the public.
Manga, right?
On the other side, we're facing the same budgetary issues that everybody else is.
Look up maybe your favorite publisher.
I think
and they
really
might have.
bringing
I know Yen Press does, but I don't know if you read any Yen Press.
That yes, there are people who can't access these things at home, but the opportunity is there for them as long as the support is there. You want to add?
Yeah, being an urban library specialist myself at the State Library in New Jersey, I definitely sympathize with what you're saying, and as individual libraries, urban or otherwise, contend with their funding situations and begin to look at what's in demand and what's not in demand. Technology very much, public use technology in libraries very much in demand. That's a really, really critical issue that you're stating. Thanks for mentioning that.
Thank you.
Can you envision a subscription model specifically for academic libraries?
Good question also too, because as we saw with the Superman microfiche there, there is historical significance to comics publishing, both as popular culture in the United States. Heck, comics grew up and were originated in America, so Americana, etc. It would be nice to see academic, or it'd be nice to see a company be able to forge a road in terms of being able to make available licensed digital content to all kinds of libraries, public, academic, or otherwise, just like we do now with other publishing models in digital.
Thank you.
So in lieu of a large subscription database like EBSCOhost for comic books, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on what the feasibility is for loaning tablet PCs out to patrons for use within the library, or like a Kindle Fire with those 100 graphic novels on there just for use within.
It's happening within the library, and it's happening outside the library. There are libraries that are lending hardware out. It's legally a gray area right now in many ways, because what is actually being licensed here. The library has a tablet with ebooks on it. Do those ebooks belong to all of their patrons?
And I must also say that when the Kindle Fire was introduced, and that the fact that there were going to be exclusives and comics content to be available on them, that was one of the first things that I thought of. How is it possible for our library users to be able to use these as part of a library loaning process? Now, and I understand Amazon and for the Kindle has something up, or at least there is something happening with a connection between libraries and circulating stuff. So hopefully this can continue with comics too. Cross our fingers. Hey guys, thank you very much.
Think about this when you go home, because those new models will need, it's going to come from all of you. Enjoy the convention. Have a great time.
Thank you. Yeah, so if you look up manga, or if you look up the published